the working class rising up. This is the ruling class punching down.
My day, bigger your day.
First rule of gladiator school, bro. Don't punch down.
Charging into a goblin's
Hail, Trump! The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within.
Control your own body.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
We can fight the entire grinding system. Nobody can. But together, everybody can.
I did nothing wrong.
Hello and welcome to Did Nothing Wrong Live, the show that cuts through the noise and helps you make sense of the chaotic information space around us. I'm Griff, and with me are Jay McKenzie and Karl Folk. In today's episode, we discuss Liberation Day and the absolute insanity of the new Trump tariffs, as well as the Wisconsin Supreme Court race that Elon just couldn't buy, and what's really behind all the Trump's third term talk. Thanks again for your support. Keep listening to learn more, and remember to smash those like and subscribe buttons to ensure that we can afford the new tariffs on the eternal vigilance that is the price of liberty. So, Wednesday, April 2nd was Liberation Day. And for the United States, according to the Trump administration, we were liberated. And what did that actually mean? Massive tariffs on basically the entire world, including an effective rate of 54% on all imports from China, which is no big deal because it's not like anyone buys anything from China, right?
Nope. None of our little, goods in trade for us having a terrible set of social systems come there. Nope.
And 10% on all trade with the Heard and McDonald Islands. That's a volcanic island off the coast of Antarctica whose only inhabitants are penguins and other assorted seabirds.
I hope they learn their fucking lesson.
Man, you cannot trust a fucking penguin.
No, we found this out. Batman actually told us about this, that you can't trust penguins.
No shit, man. And oddly enough, the only country that was not on the tariffs list was, wait for it, Russia.
Yep.
Wild. So, Liberation Day, do you feel liberated, guys? Do you feel more liberated than you did earlier this week?
I feel liberated from about 2,000 or 3,000 points on the Dow. But,
yeah, no kidding. Liberated the shit out of the stock market.
I don't have anything of value there.
That old strategy of like not having enough money to invest in the stock market paying off once again, I can see.
Funny how the millennials have this built-in plan to never get wealthy. Thank you.
I keep seeing these articles about how the millennials are set to inherit like trillions of dollars, and I'm thinking it's like the meek and the earth, that eventually supposedly it'll happen, but it's taking its sweet fucking time.
How many millennials is that? Is that like 12? Is like 12 people that are going to inherit it from their billionaire, soon to be trillionaire fathers? Like, is that what we have? Because
wonders. One really wonders.
I can't wait until that trickles down, man. It's going to be such a windfall.
Well, it'll be abundance, guys. We're going to get abundance.
Well, we've definitely got an abundance of a mess right now. Other countries are starting to react to these tariffs. China just slapped a 34% tariff on everything from the United States that's coming in. The Canadians, we've been friends with these people for centuries. This is I'm half Canadian, okay? I'm up there a lot. And all of a sudden, we've got a country that just pretty much kind of hates us. Like all these old resentments have come out. They really feel like we've bullied them and they're just not going to have it anymore. And we're about to lose a whole lot of our sources of lumber. We're about to lose a whole lot of our fertilizer. This is crazy.
No, I mean, this is empire killer stuff, right? Like ultimately, these kind of self-inflicted wounds do terrible damage for generations, both monetarily, but more importantly, between the relationships. And the last time the relationship was with Canada was bad, they burned down the White House. And this time I don't think it's going to be the equivalent by any means, but I do think that the damage will be similar in that we're going to literally have generations of work to do to get back to where we were roughly 80 days ago. And for those of us who did initially come into the job market and different things in 2007, 2008, like some of us did, um, it feels remarkably similar financially and much worse globally in that relationship. And I can say for myself, like I'm doing stuff to get ready for a big role for grad school in a PhD program, and it's changed right now that we're
Yeah.
dealing with a wholly different topography of the international relations. And it's it feels very similar in that we as Americans elected someone who's limiting our horizons versus building bigger ones with our allies and friends. And I think everyone's going to come to that understanding at some point soon. But also I think that people are going to find out that some of the doors they always thought would be open no longer are.
Yeah. You look at the amount of travel that's happened since all of this stuff went down to the United States. You look at flights incoming and amount of passengers, it's way down.
Oh yeah.
The amount of people coming down into the country from Canada, the amount of tourism, like there's a whole huge chunk of, Northwestern Washington that survives on like Canadian tourism, and they're all hurting.
Oh yeah.
Bellingham and everything north, forget it. No one's coming down.
Oh, but the tariffs are going to bring that money back, right?
Mhm.
Can you break that down for me? Explain how that works. But it's all going to be fine, right? They're going to get the money. Is it the
Not
tax?
exactly.
Is it the
Not
tax
exactly.
cuts or what? Tariffs aren't a tax, right? So it's the tax cuts.
Yeah, unfortunately, somebody told you the wrong story about that.
Oh,
It's a straight up tax, and it's going to be passed right on to the consumer in most cases. So the price of whatever it was that you were buying at $1 from China is now going to be 54% higher than that on every dollar, and eventually that adds up. And eventually you also see our farmers, our merchants, the people that produce goods and ship them overseas from this country are going to sell less overseas because of the tariffs over there. Everybody's retaliating. Nobody's
Oh
just
yeah.
letting this go.
No.
So what then? This is the worst self-inflicted wound I think I can remember our country ever doing. This is insane.
well,
It's really bad.
and Trump supporters are going on the airwaves and trying to tell people that actually it'll be fine. It'll be hard for a little while, and then we'll have more money. And
Yeah.
they're saying, oh, there are plenty of economists who think that this will be great and they've worked this out and it'll be fine. Of course, no sources actually detected. I mean, maybe there's an anonymous account on Twitter that claims to be an economist that might back them up on this. But they're going out there and saying, oh, no, it'll be fine. It'll be hard for a little while, but it'll be worth it. We just have to hold on because in the end, this is going to be better.
Yep.
And I mean, that's a tough sell, but they are going for it. I'm sure some of their listeners and followers are going to believe them because they've believed them up to this point. But
I'm going to quote the guy who was inadvertently taking money from Russia for a number of months and didn't realize it, a gentleman named Benny Johnson. He says, quote, in Twitter, losing money means nothing. Digital ones and zeros.
Yeah.
In the end, you won't miss any of it. Losing your country costs you everything. You will never get that back. Your kids will be slaves to foreign powers who hate us. Without America First policies, we become slaves.
Yep.
Fight. And that's the line that they're trying to push right now to their fans, to their audience. And I don't think people are buying this. I just, the amount of people who are pissed off and out in the streets at things like the Tesla protests, I don't think this stuff is landing.
Well, and
maybe for the 30% that we're going to buy it anyway, but man, there's a lot of people who are not.
And the prices are going to go up, and it's going to only get harder to swallow this pill.
Mhm.
And I think, though, while they try to sell this as, oh, Trump knows what he's doing, it's going to make us stronger, it's going to bring back the jobs and give us more money, I think what few of the right-wing influencers are actually saying is that there's no proof that this is going to actually make our economy stronger or make things cheaper. Yes, maybe it'll bring back some manufacturing and some jobs, but overall it's going to hurt us, and there's absolutely no proof that it will make things better. But I think most of them, the ones who are really die hard with the MAGA hat, all in for the nationalism, they think what they really think this is for and what this will do is similar to what happened in Russia after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. And that is that, look, in Russia, the standard of living has gone way down. Goods cost a lot more. Trade is, I mean, virtually non-existent with the West, and they've had to open up more trains to North Korea, than India and other parts of what we might call the third world. But it's, look, by any Western standard, life is worse to much worse in Russia. But what the Putin regime has leaned into is an idea that MAGA wants to lean into, which is that hard times make hard men.
100%. I was
Yep.
literally, that's what I was about to say. Like, these guys really truly believe that their social Darwinianism is going to build a fascist army for them at some level, right? And
Yeah.
like, the reality is, what it does is it kills people, and it
Right.
radicalizes others away from you, and it isolates everyone from the world. And there are no strong men coming to save them.
Nope. Nope.
Because strong men don't rise out of hard times. They rise on the back of billionaires who want to change the world for them and use their shit logic along with right-wing populist talking points to get into office. And that's what's happened. And it's tough because we are all about to be taught a life lesson that some people will find out that it's also the end of their life lesson. Others are going to find out that it's a lesson that others throughout history have learned, which is that hard times create worse conditions. And those worse conditions usually lead to true instability in a way that no one in this country who's lived here their entire lives has ever experienced. No one alive in this country was alive during a time where it is going to be as tumultuous or as dangerous, truly dangerous, as it is being set up to be right now, unless you are literally 105 years old or 110 years old. The last time this country did this with something equivalent was Smoot-Hawley during Hoover, I believe.
Yeah.
And
how'd that work out?
It ended up with the Great Depression, and it ended up with a majority of the largest cities in the country doing things like butchering their zoo animals so their cities didn't starve.
Yeah.
And, that is not something that Americans in any way are prepared for, whether that's physically or mentally. And, 2 hours before we started recording this, and it's Friday at about 5:50 Eastern time, the White House put up the crime-proof fences and is starting to put up the barricades. And some of that is the paranoia that's everywhere within all of the right-wing circles that exist in the White House. But also, I think there's a genuine understanding that, like, there is going to be massive unrest.
Yes.
As this starts to really come in to shore, and we're not going to get a tsunami. We're going to get a series of much smaller waves that do much more damage than giant waves in a certain level, because this is going to be kind of like sea level rise, right, where the anger just keeps building and building and building. And tomorrow these protests that are planned have now spilled over from just America to Europe to our territories outside of the contiguous United States.
Oh yeah.
And I would assume, just looking at it, that we're going to have a day tomorrow that looks a lot like some of the highest attendance days of the protests against the second Iraq War.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
that is amazing for a country that really hasn't moved much in a long time. It's good to see that those of us who kind of understood the social history of this country called it correctly when we said that it takes some time, but once we get moving, we actually do move, and God help you get out of our way.
Yeah.
But this is bigger than I think even, I mean, hell, you got the Nazis out here like Richard
Hanania.
yeah, Hanania, flipping out to the point where they're trying to claim that they're renouncing their Trumpism. Like, fuck off.
Trying to get
For
on the
one,
good side of all of this.
Fuck off for one, but two, that says something about how I think damaging this has been to the brand, right? And that's
Well, it's worth pointing out who funds him. It is tech
No, they're-
oligarchs who have lost a shit ton of money this week.
and they're going to
And then-
continue to.
And then suddenly his opinion changes.
Yep.
Weird.
Well, and that's just it, right? Like, the opinion changes when the bottom line starts to get hit. And what I think Silicon Valley's tech fascist side didn't understand is that, like, Trump doesn't give two fucks.
Nope.
No. They
Nope.
thought it was all kayfabe. And they really they
Until it
believed
wasn't.
it. And it wasn't. And could have told him, you could have saved your money on Richard Hanania. I could have given you that advice for free. Well, and it's like the idea that, what was it, by how much the public opinion has changed on whether or not Trump would be better or worse for Americans for the economy. And it was like plus 15 before the election, and before these tariffs it was back to about minus 15. But I was thinking about it, and like, there are a few times in life, right, when you just know something. You just you just know. Like, if somebody had asked me that before the election, it doesn't matter what I had to put up as collateral. Like, if somebody offered me a bet and said, do you think Trump's going to be better or worse for the economy? Like, it's just obvious. I knew he would be worse. I knew it would be drastically worse. Because I've been paying attention, and all these people just weren't. They were in their bubble of Substacks, based on Richard Hanania's suggestions.
Yep.
And they just didn't get it.
And I got to really rant about this for a second, because I was thinking about Richard Hanania earlier today. Like, buddy, if you've been this wrong about this many things, maybe it would be good to show a little humility and kind of maybe not offer takes for a while. Maybe like go do some studying, go reflect on what led you to the point where you actually thought this was a good idea at some point, and maybe start there and think, maybe I should just go for a vow of silence for a year or so and not say anything, so I can figure out where I fucked up so badly to think this was a good idea. But I was wrong about who was going to win the election, but I was not wrong about who should have.
But that's how we got here.
Not wrong about it.
But that's how we got here, is people listening to people who are just perpetually wrong. People, all these influencers.
And I don't get it. I've never gotten that. I've never understood that in my life. It's like, at some point, these guys, when they're on these shows, should have their win-loss record on this stuff on the bottom of the screen. Like, how many times were you right? How many times were you wrong? It's like labels on food. And I know we're doing away with that probably too, but they should have a running count of how many times you've just fucking blown it.
There needs to be a tattoo on Tim Pool's forehead that says, this man said Trump would win all 50 states in 2020. Like, that just should never go away. But Russia paid him to make content anyway. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why they did that. It's crazy.
Nobody knows. It's a mystery. Can't figure
really
it out.
tough.
It's crazy.
Like, people want to have this grand vision of like Trump as some special agent, when I think the reality is, like, the Russians saw someone who could do a whole lot of what they wanted, which is to handicap the U.S. And Trump is unbelievable. Like, he's an unreality figure, right? Like, it's bizarre because he lives in this bubble of being fucking vehemently wrong about
Yes.
everything he says. And the people, right-wing misinformation kind of lives on. And when you have a situation where you literally just have a who can lie the loudest world,
Yeah.
one of the things we've talked about on this show, and I've written about, and I've spoken about publicly, is like the unreality state that any of these countries, whether it's Russia, whether it's here, whether it's Hungary, require is incredibly brittle because it's based on bullshit, and it's based
Yeah.
on ping-ponging bullshit back and forth so fast that people don't see it. And what we're starting to see, I think, is the full kind of outline, topography, for lack of a better word, of that bubble, but also just how incredibly brittle it is. And it's similar to seeing that the Daily Caller, whichever the one is that Diaper Boy is working for, like, they're going under, right? Like, they are going to become bankrupt because, like the entire bubble that we all get to see a reflection of, it's held together with duct tape, corruption, and lies.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's really unbelievable to see something where, like, The Wire, right? The Daily Wire, right?
Yeah.
Where
the Daily
they
Wire,
have this massive influence within the circle and within the movement, but also literally are going to end up going bankrupt because they thought their own bullshit was clean, but also because they overextended themselves, assuming that everyone would buy into, like, right-wing Game of fucking Thrones. And that's the thing, at some level,
these people thought they were going to take on Disney.
Literally,
they thought they were going to have an entertainment conglomerate to rival Disney.
Yep. And the reality is, that kind of outlines the topography, like I said, the brittleness also, but also that these people have drank their own Kool-Aid in a fundamental way, and they can't distinguish between their own bullshit, the other bullshit, and the real world that we all inhabit. And they've done a ton of damage to our ability to make sense of this, but also they don't know because they can't make sense of it either. And that makes them extremely at risk, right?
And because they can't stop.
Right.
We all need moments of self-reflection and where you have to sit with the board and look at the pieces and see where your next move is. But when you're constantly putting out bullshit 24/7, and if you, to the point where if you stop, you're done. Like, you may as well just be dead because people will forget you and go to one of the 800 other options out there.
Right.
There is no self-reflection. They don't consider, like, what they're doing, the implications, what the consequences are going to be. Are we really in a bubble? Is this really happening? And so they just keep going until they hit a wall.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if your entire inner culture is based on double down, you get to a point where if you double down, you do more damage to yourself than to the opposition, big air quotes around opposition. And I think we passed that point a long time ago with certain parts of the right. But now, nature, reality, whatever we want to call it, the objective reality of the world reaches out and touches everyone, even if you're in a bubble. And I think we're going to see more and more of this where, like, the material reality of the world they've tried to create is going to press on their ability to lie effectively in such a way where doubling down will ultimately hurt them more. And I think we're in a really interesting position.
I think we saw that this week with the Wisconsin Supreme Court election that Elon Musk decided to literally try to buy. Like, he's handing out $1 million checks, $100 checks. He's telling everybody, go out and vote. I will pay you to go out and vote for my candidate. And then his candidate went and lost by 10%.
Yep.
And
And he said, "Oh, he always knew he was going to lose." I mean,
Then why did you waste that much fucking money,
you spent
dude?
$21 million that we know of, and you
Mhm.
always knew you were going to lose. I know
Always.
I know he won't back down, and he can't just admit it. He always knew it, but it's the cope, man. The
Oh, it's
cope.
amazing. It's so
Mhm.
good. Like the fact that he took 3 hours off from posting that night to do whatever he
Must have
does.
killed
with
him.
Mike-
Cry, just
Cry,
I'm gonna
cry.
go. I bet he told everyone he was going to play video games. Then he just went off to a room somewhere and just cried, like the whole
We know he
time.
doesn't actually play
cried
video
into a
games.
half
That's such a
ounce of
fucking lie.
ketamine. Yeah, just cried into a half ounce of ketamine until everything was better, right? Like, I need to horse tranquilize myself out of this. And then he comes back, and his first sets of tweets were magic, true magic
Uh-huh.
from the mind of someone who is coping so hard that there's not enough copium in the world to
I meant
satisfy
to
them.
do that.
And like, I think it says something when when literally you get involved and your candidate loses every time, and it's like by a larger percentage
Yeah.
every time. You're solidifying yourself as the world's most off-putting man, but also that you just have no sense. And I have to assume at some level his business, like the people on the boards of his business, outside of being threatened mercilessly by MAGA cronies, are also sitting here just being like, well, no wonder we're losing money everywhere we turn. And I was looking, and it looks like Europe is about to sign an agreement with their own satellite company for Ukraine. And if that's the case and stuff like that really starts to hit, his ability to even control his companies is going to come into question. And
Yeah.
that's when the real magic's going to happen for Musk.
France is banning Teslas. France is about to ban Teslas.
Yeah.
I always meant to lose control of Tesla.
Uh-huh.
It's part of
And
the plan.
It's the plan.
And
I trusted the
Starlink.
plan.
Like, we're just, I think we're going to see this man get.
I'm telling you, it's like, I think this ends with him on one of the little floating islands that Peter Thiel ended up not moving to, in a penthouse with no one around, just pissing in jars and tweeting and into nothing. Maybe Twitter's not even live at that point because he's killed that too. Like he's going to end up alone.
He's going
just
the Howard Hughes route. I mean, he does end up in the Howard Hughes.
Long nails, long hair, Kleenex boxes, the whole fucking.
Nobody's seen him in years, and like, is he still alive or is he dead or does?
Well, the difference was with Howard Hughes, people cared.
Yeah, the big difference is Howard Hughes also wasn't out there putting things out where it's like 10 years later and he's posting shit about how he's gonna colonize Mars for the future of the white race. Like, it's just not, I mean, if we took Howard Hughes and we took Ford and we put them together and then gave them a sprinkling of like Ayn Rand, I think that gives us a good view of how this ends. And like, Ford ended his life kind of, I mean, truly as someone who was a pariah.
Yeah.
And Hughes ended up not as a pariah, but also kind of self-exiled in his own bubble. And then Rand, died on our tax dollars and alone.
Yeah.
And poor. And like, that says something, I think, about where this ideology ends up, whether it's just the straight up Nazism or the incredibly anti-human capital politics. Like, it's just, these people don't end in a good place.
Well, and I think it's got to be really tough for him right now because he bought an election. He got Trump over the finish line and Trump won. And so he thought, well, I bought one election. Why can't I buy another? But he bought an election for Trump and really people voted for Trump. Yep. Whereas this time people voted against him because people hate him. Like,
world's most
he is. It's just very clear that people hate him. So he loses this Wisconsin Supreme Court race, and then immediately the stories come out that Doge might shut down soon. And
Yeah.
who the
Yeah.
fuck, who knows if that's real or fake or whether they'll change their mind. I'm not saying anything is inevitable there, but it's clear that the people around Trump know that Musk is toxic. When any sort of race or election in the future where Elon is, there's even a whiff of him, it's going to be bad for them. And yes, elections are going to get less free and less fair, but they're still going to be votes. And if
Right.
Elon is even around the ballot, it's going to be bad for them. So
can they possibly put their thumb on the scale enough with what we have left to balance that out?
I think we just have to keep reminding people that Elon is there. And yes, you should hate him. Yes, he should be a pariah. Yes, he did this to himself. Yes, it was a Nazi salute. Like, just keep it up.
Yeah. And again, the Teslas are burning themselves. The man can't sell the damn cars. The Cybertruck is on path to be a worse failure than the Ford Edsel.
Yeah.
Like literally right now, they have sold half as many Cybertrucks in the same amount of time as Ford sold Edsels. And that is the synonym for automotive failure.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody knows anything about cars, you say Edsel, it's, 75 years past that and everybody knows what you mean.
Yeah.
Cybertrucks are going to be worse. This is all-time historical shit here.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's the thing, like these people want a legacy, and that I think is important.
Oh, they're going to get one.
Drive some of this. And so when you see what their legacy is going to be, I mean, these, this is, you're watching a train come at you, like Tesla is going to be known as the company whose president and owner self-immolated himself and the company and democracy and literally got nothing for it. And that's going to be one of the more, I think we're going to have a lot of stories at the end of this, whenever that is, where people really, do see this for what it is. And that is small, tiny people who feel they should be in charge because they hate the right people.
Yeah.
And that's just not how this works.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of this is going to have to go back to the botched penis.
It may.
Really, though, like if you, and for anyone who doesn't know,
God help you now.
Right.
You're a far better person than you probably should be to be listening to this program.
Look, I don't want to make light of erectile dysfunction. Happens to a lot of men. Sounds terrible. And people are allowed to receive medical treatment for whatever gender affirming.
One would call that gender affirming care.
I support gender affirming care for whomever needs it for whatever reason they decide they need it. But so much of this, when you talk about where this started for Musk, a lot of it was related to the trans issue. And his oldest child is a trans female. And Elon is not happy about it, has not been happy about it. His daughter has, I think, changed her last name to her mother's maiden name and wants nothing to do with him. She has also said that, yes, that was a Nazi salute at the inauguration, which good for her. But look, I think we gotta say it. I mean, if Elon's dick doesn't work anymore, like a lot of this comes down to, he knows he's going to die one day. It doesn't matter how many kids he has. Doesn't matter how much money he has. He's going to die like the rest of us. And he can't make any more children the normal way with a functioning unit. And like just the whole idea that, oh, this is about saving the white race and the population numbers, and I can't deal with the declining numbers, and civilization is going to fail, and we have to colonize Mars. And really, he's just pissed off that his dick doesn't work. Like it's all about the dicks. I mean, hard times make hard men, but this man can't get hard.
And this is like the most Freudian we will ever get on this show.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. I had to do it.
I think you're right, though, too, that like now that it's come out too that he's doing selective IVF to select which gender, there's some credence here to this is a person who is deeply insecure.
Oh yeah.
In ways that are fucking shocking. And we've seen it all the time, right? Like you're saying, I think it's actually right, even though Freud and I have a fraught relationship. I think there's some level of truth to
Maybe
that.
he got this one right.
I think too, he does believe that like he's gonna bring about the revolution of the engineers. And they're going to engineer their way into this 21st century of the sci-fi, in the 22nd century that is sci-fi and all this. And yeah, the Dark Enlightenment folks are dead serious. Curtis Yarvin, Nick Land, they're dead serious. They're implementing a plan. Musk, though, being the avatar for it, is kind of the funniest shit I've ever seen, because the guy is unable to be in any way, shape, or form fucking normal. And I don't mean normal in like the cool way. I mean just like he reminds me of Vincent D'Onofrio's character from Men in Black, where it's just this guy trying to wear a skin suit, trying to be kind of like normal, but just can't pull it off. And it's because he's an off-putting dude who no one's ever said no to, whose dick may or may not work, but probably doesn't. And he also can't buy the thing he wants, which is to be cool.
Right.
Like, you can't buy being cool. And, for someone who literally believes that you should be able to buy everything, whether that's an election or companies or whatever, you have to assume this is someone who also is going to fundamentally crack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it's all of our patriotic duty as Americans to see what that point is and push right the fuck past it.
Oh yeah.
And we're doing good work on this already. All of us. Good luck to good job to everyone doing their part. But like tomorrow, which will is Saturday the 5th, we're gonna find out where his line is, I think. When there are these mass protests all over the country and now apparently all over Europe. And I think, if we get into margin call territory for Tesla, we're going to find out just how funny this gets.
Yeah. And speaking of funny, there is a trial balloon being floated very badly amongst the media set these days about a third Trump term. Now, this is comical on the surface, but I think considering the way the man has phrased his statements of intent thus far about what he plans to do, one must think that he's at least taking the possibility somewhat seriously. Now, to be clear, this is very unconstitutional. There is no constitutional mechanism for what he proposes to do.
No.
It is to and out, folks. They are very clear about how they specified this.
They made that very clear after Democratic Socialist won 3 times in a row. Yes.
Right. They've made it very clear since the days of FDR that this is not going to fly. But for whatever reason, Mans thinks he can somehow get around that. Besides like wiping his ass with the Constitution, I'm not sure how he seems to think he's going to do this, but this is a fantasy that certain of the media seem to be willing to indulge him in at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little frightening because we're seeing normalization in real time of this concept.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing before, was like, don't normalize this stuff. Don't make it clear that like there's any real reason. Push back hard the minute he says something like this. And we're seeing it again. They're not.
No, and I mean, it's a pattern, right? Like this goes to what we've talked before on this show and like when I've been on Did Nothing Wrong. This is the Red Caesar shit. This is the stuff where they're starting to try and normalize the idea that the Constitution isn't a constraint. And when you have someone like Trump, who is a known entity in the world of pushing not just boundaries, but literally, using kind of his conspiratorial sense and the way that the far right works to not just test boundaries, but kind of launder a
Right.
future action. We're deep in the weeds. And I think that people need to take it dead seriously, as comical as it seems from the quote legal standpoint. Because what we're seeing right now with destruction of departments and all of this is they are doing damage that is uncorrectable.
Yeah.
That some of these departments will never come back from, even as judges say, no, this is illegal. And there's no mechanism to rebuild what they've destroyed already.
No, we've flushed a generation of science down the toilet
Or
at this
more.
point.
Or
At
more.
least.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like, I'll take the example of National Institute of Health.
It's fucking bad.
It's gone, right? Like it doesn't exist. And the thing is, if a judge in 2 weeks says this was illegal, you have to redo it, you can't.
No.
You'll be able to say, well, we did it, but the internal mechanisms, the systems, the people, the knowledge, the experiments, the data won't exist anymore. So it will just be a facade of what it
And they
was.
know this. And they know this.
Yeah.
That's exactly the goal, right? Is move fast, break things, and then if you have to disrupt. And if you have to, you know, and if a court does stop you, well, all you have to do is say it's back, and there's nothing internally there anymore. It's an empty shell of what it was. And, you know, I think that that's the real thing here. We're seeing the way that this kind of authoritarianism works, in that the damage gets done, it's permanent damage, and then someone says you have to correct this, and they basically say, okay, and
yeah.
Well, and going back to what you're talking about Trump's third term and how it's being laundered into the media, I want to remind people that January 6th happened because Griff and I were watching this at the time, starting in about late September.
Yep.
Was that 2020? Yeah, late September
2020.
2020, before the election, before Trump had even lost. They started using the term "stop the steal," which Roger Stone and various right-wing people had used in 2018 and 2016. Yeah, like it wasn't a new term, but they just started saying it, and people showed up at the Capitol on January 6th because they relentlessly for 3 months just kept message. They just, how do you know the election is stolen? Because everyone says it was stolen. Because they just said it, and they said it and repeated it and repeated it. And yeah, they lost court case after court case. There was evidence and more evidence and another day of evidence that they were just lying. There was no basis for this, but it didn't matter because they kept saying it. So Trump saying he might have a third term, this is not, I saw the New York Times analysis of this where they're basically saying, oh, well, he would be a lame duck right now, but he's reminding everyone that, you know, maybe he could have power, and he's trying to change the conversation, and it's distracting from other things that are going poorly for him. And I mean, that I'm not going to say that there's none of that. But that's not the reason. Like, he wants to stay in power. We know that he has already tried, based on nothing, based on tweets and podcasts and people just saying that, oh, he didn't lose and it was stolen. And he believed it, and millions of people believed it too, just because they kept saying it. So they're going to keep saying, yay, Trump's third term. They're going to come up with a catchphrase for it, and they're going to keep repeating it, and they're going to keep saying it has to happen, and we have to save our country. He's not going to go willingly. There is no chance of that. So the idea that this is some 4D chess is just wrong. And if honestly, if you look at the comments from Republican senators and people in DC, they say, oh, well, he's just kidding. He knows he can't really do it. It's not real. It's just don't take it seriously. He just knows how to play the game. And it's the same shit that they said before January 6th when all the reporting was saying nothing's going to happen. He can't do anything. The law won't let him. He's going to leave. Like, just ignore it and it'll go away. And if you ignore this and think it'll go away, well, that's how you're going to get a third Trump term. And maybe, a fourth, or if he dies, you get Trump Jr. I mean, it's, you do not beat this by hoping that the Supreme Court is going to save you, that the Constitution is going to save you, that anyone is going to
Yeah.
come to your rescue.
Well,
He
and
will
this has
stay
been, yeah, and
unless you stop him.
yeah, and this has been my argument, right? Like we've all seen, if you've followed me on social media, that the last 2 weeks I've really spent hammering on the social construction of law, the fascist will to power and its use as a steamroller, and how the far right uses conspiracy theory not as a way to theorize, but
No.
literally as a way to inoculate their base for their own future actions. And what we're seeing right now is, like you said, the same thing that we saw in the lead up to J6. And I just looked back and I found a tweet of mine from 11/9/20. 11/9/20. And it's someone saying Mitch McConnell got up there and touted the result of the Senate and House races, but refused to accept the outcome of the presidential race on the same ballot. He is such a incredibly dishonest partisan hack. And I retweeted that saying they are not going to accept the presidential election and they are going to end game it and try to coup.
Yeah.
And it's because the same thing you two were seeing, I was seeing on my side, which is that they had built a conspiracy narrative that they used then to justify their actions, essentially do world building, and then maintain the status quo within the movement. And at the end of the day, that led to a coup attempt. And
Right.
with what they're doing right now between trial ballooning the third term and a couple of other things they're starting to put out, this is the stuff you have to be dead serious about and take it exactly at face value. I know people hate it when we say, believe what they say. We have to believe them on this one, because if we don't do that, it's not just a Trump third term that happens. It's everything else that comes with someone saying, you know what? The Constitution and the words written on it are secondary to my ambitions. And that opens up the door wider than it already is on truly horrific acts against all of us. And, the fact that they're targeting individuals to be black bagged on the street, the fact that they are targeting schools in a very methodical way based on something that a lot of people spent a lot of time telling all three of us was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Just kind of underlines the fact that, like, as much as we want to believe these people are a bunch of clown shoes, these clown shoes also have knives hidden in the heels. And not really walking through the logistics of this and what they're actually doing by saying what they're saying puts us all at immense risk for far worse than we're already going to be dealing with. And we've already got probably 25 years of undoing shit just to get back to where we were a month, 2 months ago. And, you get into a Trump third term thing, and that's not just the rest of our lives, but the rest of our kids' lives.
Oh, yeah. That's generational.
Yeah.
That happens. And this experiment known as the United States is over.
But yeah,
the minute somebody pulls that, forget it.
Yep.
It's whatever's coming next, be that a fascist dictatorship, which I think will be what you would call that at that point.
Yes.
Or whatever comes after the fascist dictatorship. And, maybe you luck out and get something halfway democratic after that, but you might not. And
it won't be until we're all in our stuff.
We're going to have years of misery as a result of any of this. So I got to say, it's scary that they're floating this, but I'm at least somewhat optimistic that we've gotten people upset and out in the streets in a way that doesn't appear to be abating in time.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll say what I've said to other people privately. I am more optimistic right now than I've been in a long time that we're actually going to do the big work of real change and material change for good for all of us. because people are, for the first time in a long time, really seeing that like politics will change your life for
Yeah.
better or worse, whether you believe it or not. And if if people want to have real change, they have to fight for it now. And a lot of people are, and it's incredibly ugly right now in some ways within the Democratic Party, because we're starting to see the factions that we've all talked about start to become very clear. There's some clear lines. And I think that, as scary as this moment is, as dark as it is, and as dark as it's going to get, there's a real opportunity here to move forward in a big way and to swing for the fences in a way that helps people more than there ever has been. And it's unfortunate that it had to come to this point for people to be willing to actually shift from 30 years of neoliberal technocracy. But we're here now, and we have to make hay with what we have. And I think there's a real chance that we do actually find the true patriotism that made this country what it is in some ways. And that means working together as a community and finding people who are of like mind and working together to build better for all of us. And a lot of that looks really kind of like just day-to-day stuff. But the bigger outcome is massive. Like I've been thinking about how much we all, us three and everyone else, are starting to have conversations about democracy. Not about the politics, not about the Democratic Party, not about the Republicans, but about democracy, about what it means to be a democracy, what it means to have the true ideals that we've all believed were true, but we knew never really were because of the way this country was organized. And that's a pretty revolutionary moment for this country, to have people actually thinking and talking about what a true multiracial pluralist democracy looks like going forward, because we've never actually had one. Like that's a huge conversation.
And we're in a position now where we might be able to. Maybe.
Well, we're very much living in, what's the saying? With great risk comes great opportunity. We're living in the great risk.
Yeah.
But there is a real opportunity, and somebody's going to seize it. So let's be the ones to seize it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.